Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm an author that loves reading all types of books. My goal with this channel is to review the books that I read, but also let you know what it's like being a new author. I'll go over some of the projects that I'm working on, the genres I write in, and how I come up with ideas from my stories and other things about what it means to be an author. As the channel grows, I hope to do live streams to answer any questions that you may have of me as an author. And I want to talk about additional side hustles that I do as well, because there are a lot of things that I do myself, but primarily, like I said before, this is just me reviewing different books and everything else that I've read myself. There'll be all types of books, from fiction, non-fiction, different types of self-help books, anything like that, books that I'm writing as well. So I'll be reviewing all those different types of things. Previously, I did have a podcast called the Indie Publisher Bookstore Podcast. As I said before, I'll talk about some of my side hustles, but in the past, I managed a website that sold indie books, and I did interviews with indie authors. So I have about 7 or 8 of those that I was doing before I just couldn't do it anymore, and I'll make sure and post those as well on this channel over time as well. So there'll be some weeks where I'll post some of those. And also indie authors, I'll definitely list what the criteria are, but I'll make sure that if you want to do an interview or something like that, hey, by all means. I'm also looking forward to your comments. I've been writing for a while now, getting my craft better, right? To be honest, it's been more than a little while. So for me, it's been one of those situations where I've been telling stories since I was a little kid. I remember when I was a child, I used to tell stories during summer camp. In fact, my first year, 4th grade, when I went to the summer camp, on Fridays they needed some extra time. And so first they did a talent show for the first 2 weeks. After the first 2 weeks, though, my talent was always telling stories. And the kids just kept asking me to tell stories. And the counselor was like, look, we'll go ahead and get rid of the talent show and we'll just have you tell stories. Are you fine with that? I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. So that next year, strangely enough, they called up and my dad was like, hey, they're wanting to know if you're going to be going back to summer camp. I'm like, yeah, of course, duh. He's like, cool, I'm glad you want to go back. Sounds like a plan. So when they sent out the little program of what's going to be going on, they had story time with Jermaine on there. My dad's like, whoa, they called you up just to see if you were going to be there for story time? Are we getting paid for this? Where's the check? I need to see some residuals. And I was like, nah, Dad, it's cool. It's just something I enjoy doing. So that's how that works. So as far as storytelling goes, like I said, there's that part as far as me telling stories then. But one of my real big inspirations and one of the reasons I started telling stories, and not just telling stories, right, but actually writing stories as well, was I don't know how many of you may know Brian Jacques or have heard of Brian Jacques. So when I was growing up, I lived in Germany for a large part of my life. So I went to Bad Kreuznach Elementary School in Bad Kreuznach, Germany. And I said that way too hard, but Bad Kreuznach. But in Bad Kreuznach, Germany, I went to Bad Kreuznach Elementary. Duh, say it twice. And while I was there, there was an author by the name of Brian Jacques that would come on a regular basis, right? He wrote the Redwall stories. Redwall. And what I loved about when he came was every year he would come, starting when I was in 4th grade, he would come and he would talk to us about writing, and he would say, oh, here's everything that I wrote, and here's what I did on my typewriter, and here's where I made my edits. And he does all this cool stuff with his writing, right? And he shows you where he makes all this story, and he tells you about how difficult it is to write these stories. And to me, though, I was like, oh my God, this is so freaking cool. Yes, I want to do that. I want to make these stories up. Because I also love the Redwall series. Like, that was one of my favorite series of books. It's one of the ones that led me into fantasy. Anthropomorphic animals. Great way to get into fantasy. That and Watership Down. Just saying. But he read those stories, and then every once in a while he would allow one of the kids to say something or tell a story or ask the kids questions about stories. So there's one time that, I told him one of my stories, and he was like, oh man, that's very imaginative. And I loved the fact how this writer was very encouraging to all of us elementary kids. And I don't know the man personally, just met him during that time, but he seemed like a very wonderful person, very genuine guy. From what I can remember from fourth grade me, right? I was like, I don't know how young, that was damn near 30 years ago, language. But it's one of those things that I remember. And it's one of those things that inspired me to want to do this thing as a writer. I also started writing my first short story then, after meeting Brian Jacques. So hopefully if I ever find it, I'll share it with you guys. And I'll also share with you, I do remember a lot of the stories I told during that summer camp. So I'll share a lot of those with you as well over our, the course of doing these videos and our time together. So another one that kind of guided me, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of R.A. Salvatore, and I love how kinetic his writing is. I love how vivid and how much you can visualize what he does as a writer and what he brings to fight scenes and everything else. Dritz de Erden, one of my favorite characters, but I love Dritz because he was a total... he was a drow, obviously, and he got a bad rap, but he fought through prejudice. It's kind of like the X-Men of the Faerun, and the I guess at the time would have been TSR, is now Wizards of the Coast, but he was fighting against prejudice. He was a super bad bleep. I'm joking, but he was badass, right? He was a very cool drow warrior, kicking butt, taking names, coming from Enzo Baranzan, and he was just doing his thing. And it was amazing, and I loved it, and I loved reading about a character who was this badass black dude just going out there, kicking butt, taking names, taking out entire armies, just wading through cats like he didn't give a damn. So that's the type of character I liked, and that's the type of character, I won't say that's the type of characters that I write, but what I choose to do is write stories that represent as much as possible, the whole host of what can be the human experience. And that's what I want to do. Give my ideas and opinions on what it means to have this, what we call human experience, right? And then I know this is a lot to take in, especially for our first video. It's like, oh my God, this dude's name is Jermaine. He's from Germany. It's actually funny that that's exactly how that should be. But my parents in the military, right? Boom, boom. Get it? Jermaine from Germany. Anyway. But yeah, I got stories for days. I love to write different types of stories. I have an entire Evernote list. I got multiple notebooks. I got stories literally for days. There are so many stories in my mind, in my brain, and I want to bring to you, not just here on this platform, but also just to write down and let people explore what it is that I'm writing. There's just so many, and they run the gamut, and I will talk about genres, and I'll talk about how I work within genres and what I do, and how, in a lot of cases, I'm going to be honest with you, there are some tropes within genres that I try to ignore because I don't want to be shoehorned into a particular, I don't want to be shoehorned in that genre, right? I don't want to be like, he's hitting all the tropes, he's doing this, he's doing this. When I write, I try to write to, as much as possible, push a little bit. And I know every writer says that. I know everybody's like, oh yeah, I push and I do this and I do that. But for me, it's one of those things where, yes, I do try to intentionally push and change it because the way I write the genres is from my experience. And I've read these genres. I've read space operas. I've read steampunk. I've read cyberpunk. My goal is to bring you my take on all of those and to add that little bit of, I like how this one guy put it, and he's the Blerd without fear, but a little Blerd seasoning, like it. Hope he doesn't mind me borrowing that. But I plan on adding a little bit of that to it. So check me out. I hope you enjoy what you see here, and I hope you subscribe. Click the like button, hit the notification bell, and thanks for listening to me on this first vlog, or this first initial YouTube video that I'm doing. Like I said, it's something that I've done podcasting in the past. I do a lot of writing. I've helped other people create channels. and I've done, you know, just some other stuff. So I'm hoping that this is something that you can get behind, that you can enjoy. Stay safe. I know it's a crazy time that we have going on here, and be easy. Peace.